by several people and edited by Ann Heitland. The candidates have just agreed to say that all the questions that they do not answer, they will answer in writing. They do not answer verbally. They will answer in writing, and these will be posted on the Coconino Dems website. Okay, I'm Brian Bates. Thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate your attention. And edited by Ann Heitland. So, Ann, I'm getting some feedback from you, I think. Can you mute yourself? They will answer in writing. They do not answer verbally. They will answer in writing, and these will be posted on the Coconino Dems website. Okay? Thank you. I think that's going to work better. Okay, so the way this is going to work, I will ask each of the candidates to have 3 minutes to present the information about themselves, what they would like for us to know, and then we will start with their first question. So we'll do this alphabetically. Brian, could you please tell us about yourself and what exciting things you want us to know about your candidacy?
Good afternoon, I'm Brian Bates. Yate ama do ashishi do nihikis. She Brian Bates, Yanashi County Supervisor, District 4. I am a retired science teacher, and I've taught at middle school and high school for 10 years at Rough Rock, Little Singer, and Loop Boarding School, where I was the first teacher. I'm aware of the strengths of the Navajo and the Hopi people and the challenges that our Native communities are facing. I taught for 24 years at the Coconino Community College, helped initiate the college, developed a lot of the science curriculum, and I retired as an emeritus professor. I've also been a naturalist and wilderness leader for operations organizations such as Grand Canyon Youth, Grand Canyon Conservancy, Smithsonian Journeys, and National Geographic. I've served on the boards of the Festival of Science, Flagstaff Symphony Orchestra, Friends of the Rio, and was a founding member of the Flagstaff Water Group, as well as the Society for Cultural Astronomy of the American Southwest. I was a chair of the 7th Oxford University International Conference on Cultural Astronomy, and most recently was the chair of the Southwest Native Traditional Conference at NAU in April of 2019. I am running for county supervisor because I was raised to give back to my community. As a 37-year resident of Donny Park, the designer and builder of the first sustainable home given the Sustainable Building Award, and I am the current co-chair of the county's Donny Park, Timberline, and Fernwood Long-Term Planning Committee. I have the experience and the vision that best meets the needs of Coconino County, particularly District 4. When elected, I will listen to you, learn from you, and work for you. I will maintain and support our top-notch county health and safety departments, both of which have done an excellent job during the COVID-19 pandemic. I will prioritize forest health and wildfire prevention, a topic which I have taught at the college level. I advocate for continued improvement on roads, infrastructure maintenance, and broadband service. I demand wise county fiscal management, and I will keep District 4 and county residents informed of county government activities. For the Navajo and Hopi people, I will fight for money for Native schools. I will oppose dams on the Nebekeya. I will work to clean up uranium mines, and I will attempt to get federal money from the Grand Canyon Enlargement Act in order to build your economy post-Bennett freeze. I will also help to solve the contaminated well water problems with purifying systems like the one at Star School. I believe that there is value in every life, and that respect begins with listening. I pledge to serve the needs of our community, a commitment that I will fulfill as your county supervisor. Thank you for everyone attending today's forum, and I look forward to sharing my vision for the community.
Thank you, Brian. Judy?
Judy began she I told it any bushes chain, that should shade or touching it, that should nala, and Tonalis desert or Archo A Adoe Ya in Nash. My name is Judy Begay, and I've worked in the I come from Coal Mine Mesa first, and Coal Mine Mesa is like 16 miles east of Tuba City. And I feel that I do have my education behind me in management, like I said yesterday, in AU, and then also in the University of Phoenix for organizational management. And my experience is being a rancher and a farmer most of my lifetime. And I'm 65 years old, and I think we started off when we were like maybe 8 years old with my family. I've also worked in the areas of human and health management and services. And with that, we're overseeing all the health programs on the reservation and decentralization activities that we had to carry on. Also for infrastructure, roads, and housing, I worked with Navajo Housing Authority for over 20 years. And through that, which I was able to help people to get into affordable housing. Also, all the way from infrastructure, working on roads and working on the buildings and doing bid openings and soliciting grants or whatever it may be. So with that, I feel that, it could be done. Also, I worked in the school district for 20 years as different capacities. And most of it was like oversight and management, business department and stuff like that. So I have those credentials. So all the homes that were built are like with veteran homes and public housing, things like that. So that's how I know that from the ground, getting a land for the housing, stuff like that, I had to work from that capacity. I worked as a school board member for the Tuba City Unified School District for 16 years. And through that, what my job and my role and responsibility is that I helped to enforce policies. And we were policymakers, and then we did the budgets, we approved everything that came to us. So that's the experience I have in the areas of school. I was also adjunct faculty member for Dene College. It's a 2-year institution, and through there I taught all their business classes, from economics to microeconomics, macroeconomics, business law, and just all the business classes that I could get, I could teach for them. I also wrote grants on behalf of the Navajo Nation for the diabetes program, and that's still ongoing. And the year that I was a director, that's when we got those grants, and to this day it's still rolling. So that was a huge over $60 million worth of grants that we solicited. And I do a lot of charity work on my own. I help people out in need. I go out of my way. I don't take no for an answer, and I know that I can, do things, and I'm always involving people. And I think it's important that you involve people. So the issues that we have at our hands are human and health services that everybody's aware of: improving veteran services, the education, the water rights advocacy, the economic development that needs to happen, job creation that needs to happen, infrastructure, roads development and road maintenance, affordable housing, and appreciating, promoting all the diversity that's involved. And I think it's very, very important that, we do that. And so my values is that I listen, I like to communicate. My value is public servitude and bipartisanship, and a lot of respect, because that's what I was taught, and my family values, cultural and traditional values, being fluent in Navajo, and then learning knowing most of the aspects of what type of ceremonies that go on with the Native Americans. But I will if I elected, and I will make sure that all the needs are identified up front. And then from there, what can the county do? What can we do to get funding from different sources, or what programs can help us? So that's how I usually work to get my job done. Even if it took me 20 years to get a road going, and then a new office building for NHA. Took me 20 years, but I kept going back at it, went back to Washington, D.C. I've advocated for school funding, for housing funding, for health funds up in the Washington, D.C. level, going up there back and forth. And I use some of my own money to do that at times. So if I come from here, from the reservation, and then, you know, all the way to Washington, D.C., you know, I'm pretty sure I can do that. So with all these issues at hand, I have more than 45 years experience in management, and I will use my experience to represent you all. And we also need to create and strengthen partnerships to address all of these issues that are going to be at hand. And I have the advocacy skills to make this all happen for District 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, so much for your information. So I'm going to ask you the first question. And if you could try to keep your answer to about 3 minutes, that would just be really great. Then we can cover more questions. So you sort of addressed this before. What are your 3 top strengths that you believe that you bring to the job of supervisor? And how about suggesting 1 or maybe 2 weaknesses that you feel like something that you could work on? So,
okay. The strength that I have is that, like I said, I've had 45 years in working with the community overall, school, health, and also education and housing, and those are real issues that we have on all over. Anywhere you go, it's like that. And so having the experience, having to be policymaker and oversight, all of this is oversight. So, and managing, and then also soliciting funds. So that's one strength that I have. My education also, as you know, management is working with and through others to get things done, and I work that way. And then the other thing is that, you know, I listen well. If anybody brings anything to me, I will follow up through to make sure. If it's a no answer, I try different ways, you know, to get an answer. If I really can't, I need to be responsible. I will be responsible for getting back and saying I couldn't do it. This is the reason why. So, but very seldom will that happen because of all the jobs that I've had. You know, pretty much. My weaknesses, I don't know. I'm still getting hands-on, I guess, on big technology. That's probably one, but, you know, I've been working at it. I've taken classes for it, and, you know, that's one thing. And the other weakness would be, what would that be? But I know for sure technology is it.
That's good.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay, Brian, the same questions to you. Your 3 strengths and 1 or 2 weaknesses.
Thank you, Ann. I think my greatest strength is the fact that I listen to people. I was a science teacher for 40 years, and the only way you can really work with students, whether they're children or adults, is to listen to what they're saying to try to determine if they understand the concepts and where it is they're having issues. So I pride myself in being a good listener and then following through on what it is that the individual has said that needs to be acted upon. Number 2, I plan my work and I work my plan. I attended a private military academy, and it was drilled into me, set a schedule, look at your time that you need to accomplish tasks, and then do those tasks. The other thing is that I'm a scientist. I like verified information. I want to know as much as I can about an issue and then have the time to think about it before I make a decision. So my weaknesses, well, number 1, I tend to over prepare for things. I oftentimes go back through things trying to see what other connections there are, and sometimes I could probably be a bit more efficient. There are times I get a little impatient with people who don't do their job or who haven't thought through what it is they're wanting to communicate, and I get frustrated when I can't get the message that that individual is trying to send. The other thing is I can't multitask. I need to take one thing, plan it, follow through, and complete it. And so the way I manage that is that I try to delegate to other people who I know have those skills to help me accomplish those tasks.
Thank you. So Brian, you get the next question.
Okay.
Are there one or two issues that inspired you to run for this office?
Excellent question. Number one, I was inspired because I was asked to run for it by a previous county supervisor, and a couple of the issues that I think are absolutely critical. Number one is maintaining our health department, because we have a severe pandemic going on now. It is an incredible burden upon the Native peoples, and we need to be engaged as best possible with the Native peoples throughout the county. Number two, we need to really address the forest and make sure that we are reducing the fuel loads, the amount of burnable materials in the forest, and that we are getting that out of the forest as best possible so that should we have another fire, it does not turn into a catastrophic event that is then followed by a flood.
Thank you. So Judy, the same questions to you. One or two issues that inspired you to run for this office.
Honest. Well, I think the health services is very, very important at this time. And it kind of ties in with the school and then the housing. Only because, I say that because on the reservation, we have families that have like multiple families living in one household. Maybe one room octagon, maybe 2 or 3 families. And it kind of leads on to this health issue we have. And there's no privacy for kids, and this whole thing, something needs to happen where, especially housing and health, I think that needs to be worked on. And then also for veterans, I think veterans are, for the work that I had, the veterans are kind of not being really addressed. And I use everything that I could, and I house a lot of them. But the people that were housed, or the veterans that were housed, need their own homes. And the only way that I could do it was help them with public housing, which was good. At least they have a roof over their head. But I think, a lot of it kind of goes back into the land withdrawals that we have, and all the ties that, that we need to undo, to get those things accomplished. So I think, housing and health kind of go together, and then also education.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Judy, you get the next question, and it's kind of long, so I'm just going to read it. It's impossible for the Board of Supervisors to know everything about each of the more than 24 departments and 1,400 employees of Coconino County. Therefore, what do you see as the main duties and roles of the Board of Supervisors? Judy?
Yeah, just like I said yesterday, I think that being a Board of Supervisor is something I think that's somewhat like being a school board member. Policy making sure enforcing policies is one, and then also making sure that that they're updated, and then making sure that there's funding available to go with that. So I think just really keeping on top, checks and balances, make sure that everything is spent, and any funding that you get, there's always a lot of ties to it. There's a lot of criteria you have to meet, and your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, all that. So I worked with all the programs for 45 plus years I work with. That's all I've done. Just making sure that, we're in compliance, and that, we're spending our budget, we're soliciting budget. If over and beyond that, I'm soliciting for grants to supplement, the funds that are there. So, and not to be micromanaging. There's a big thing about micromanaging. I really don't like to do that. I have to go to how I used to work within what employees are, because I ran like 20 health programs at one time. So with that, and there were so many employees all throughout the reservation. So I worked directly with the directors. Any questions that come up, you have to work really close with the directors, making sure and getting information, and constantly having meetings, you know, with them, like Monday morning meetings, just to get together, just give them updates so they can convey that. And then I just mass email everything that we talked about so that they're aware. I don't ask them to do things. I don't overstep my boundaries because that's a no-no. You cannot do that. So, and you have to work with the ward clerk, you know, to get to the superintendent. So that's how I usually work with the staff.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brian, what do you feel like are the main duties or roles of the Board of Supervisors?
I break it down into three things. Number one, the board meets with the different department directors, with the county manager, and our job is oversight. Our job is not micromanagement. And I think Judy and I agree on that. And so there are something like 27 different departments within the county. And our job is to help them set their goals, find their priorities, work on their strategies for achieving those different goals. Then we need to make sure that the communication between those departments is consistent, collegial, and effective. So we're there to be on the sidelines, kind of guiding, not dictating. Second, the board is responsible for assessing the budgets of each of those departments, and we are involved in determining how those budgets are going to be balanced. So this comes down to prioritizing. What are the most critical aspects that need to be addressed by the county, whether during times in which there's little stress or times of high stress. The annual county budget for this coming year is about $215 million. For next year, it's going to be about $170 million. Now, the third thing is outside of the county, because that then involves our going to meet with state representatives, state senators, perhaps the governor, as well as the federal government. And we're to meet with folks from different political parties, different affiliations, different interest groups throughout the year. And our job is to make sure that we get the money that we need in order to do the task that we've prioritized for the different departments and for our budget. So there's a lot of interlap here, but the primary thing that the Board of Supervisors have to do is to listen, determine the root of what an issue is, and then address the root of the issue, not the symptoms.
Thank you. So the next question has to do with something you just referred to. Within the last few weeks, the Board of Supervisors approved the county budget for the next fiscal year. The vote was 3 in favor and 2 against. Which group would you have voted with and why, Brian?
Thank you, Ann. This is an excellent question, and I want to say from the beginning that there is no right or wrong answer, because the two individuals that voted against the budget had good reason for doing so. I happen to believe that we should go with the majority. I would have voted for adopting the $170 million. And by the way, it's just a little bit less than that. But I would have voted for the increase in tax. It means an additional $3 on a $300,000 home. So basically that's a fountain drink at some, like Burger King or something. The reason I would do that, is that it provides that extra money that is necessary for continuing to maintain the roads, perhaps working on broadband services. It keeps the county whole in that you're not trying to cut one department to save the other department. And so I believe that in the long run, it actually benefits everybody. And yes, we have to sacrifice a little bit more, but I think the small sacrifice is worth it.
Thank you. Judy, which group would you have voted with, the fors or the against on the budget?
I think in going back to the school board, we never questioned the 5 board members if it was 3-2 vote. Only because they were nominated, elected people, and that, they, as a board, you have to kind of work together. You don't just say, well, so-and-so, you don't kind of keep it within yourself. And how I used to work with the board is just talk to open communication, get a feel of how they're feeling. Maybe there's questions that they have that they might need clarification on that would, kind of help them to make that decision. But to me, I think that it's only fair that if board supervisor are elected and they make a unanimous vote, then, we should move on forward, is what I'm saying. And this is what I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So Judy, you get the next question. And that is, if you could dial back the clock to March the 1st and start over, would you have had the county do anything differently with regard to the pandemic?
Okay. We really didn't know what was coming at us, but yes, I think that let me just kind of focus on the reservation. I would have got a lot of prevention. I would have had, just like I said before yesterday, go out in the communities and tell the people this is what it is, and this is what's coming, and this is what's going to happen, and this may happen this way, because a lot of education needed to happen. And I think even prevention, so this where the health, we really need to look at the health. We wait till somebody is, like diabetes, they have they're diabetic, why can't we pre-screen them way back, until they're ready to have amputations done, and then they actually find out not too long after that, what about cancer? So, you have to be proactive. You have to go back and, look at it as county supervisors. We're going to have to think about everything. That's why you have all these plans in place, to curtail a lot of these issues. What are we going to do? Brainstorm one day and say, what are we going to do? If this happens, we need to start dealing with this, not till it happens and then afterwards. So I would, been more proactive, with the health programs, the hospitals, and even put myself in there, to educate. I mean, we don't have to get paid. Like I said, I did a lot of charity work. I mean, I don't care to get paid. I do a lot of work on my own. So I'm willing to do that. So yeah, we can't turn time back, but we can't be proactive. We have to be preventive education.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, if you could turn the clock back, what would you think the county could have done in this pandemic?
First of all, I think that the county has done an excellent job of addressing this. We had the first COVID testing site in the state of Arizona. And I believe that Dr. Marie Peoples and her staff, and particularly her staff, because they were the ones that did a lot of the work. I am very impressed with the work that they have done. I think the issue really lies not at the county level here, but at the state level. I think that Governor Ducey waited too long to put a order for shutting down and staying at home. And I think if we had more independence with the Board of Supervisors and the city council, that Flagstaff would have closed down earlier. We would have required masks earlier. We would have reduced the impact of the COVID virus, the COVID-19 on our community much earlier. You will remember that Mayor Evans tried to do that and the governor said, no, she can't. The other point I would make is that I think that President Nez of the Navajo Nation has done a very good job. Okay, maybe he's not made every right decision, but by golly, he has stood up and said, we need to stop people from moving around. He's made the weekend closures. He has done everything that I see that he could possibly have done in order to prevent the spread of that after there was a convention at some community where the COVID virus began. So yes, there are probably things that we could have done better, but I think you're nitpicking at some of those. And so I really believe that the solution to future issues is to allow the communities to have more local governance, allow the city councils and the county supervisors to have more authority in their own communities, because we understand the issues that we face much better than does folks in Phoenix.
Thank you. So Brian, you get the next question. What are the two main issues you see in the county jail system and regional policing?
That's a tough one. But I think one of the big issues that we face is that we have a small Native American population, which constitutes a large population, a large percentage of the population within the jails. And that we have a lot of folks that are indigent, a lot of folks that end up in jail that may have mental health issues. So I think one of the first things that we need to do is to really work with Sheriff Driscoll. And by the way, I've talked with him about this and he agrees. If he doesn't, I ask him to speak up. That we need to have a stronger mental health program that goes on with the officers along the streets, so that if they have a mental health case, they can call and say, hey, I need a psychologist now at this location. That we have psychologists and psychiatrists that are in at the jail that are working with people, that we have an outreach program for those individuals. I think the other issue that we have is that we're asking too much of our police and our sheriffs, our deputies. I have talked with Sheriff Driscoll. I agree, we don't have enough officers, and oftentimes those officers are working a 12-hour shift for 3 days a week. Well, 12 hours on the job, 3 days back to back, that's brutal. And that leads to fatigue. That leads to folks just being tired and perhaps making a decision that, had they been working 8-hour shifts, may not have made that same decision. So I think that in part we need to have more officers serving 8 hours a day or maybe 10 hours a day, but we don't put so much stress on them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Judy, so what do you see are the issues with the county jail system and the policing?
Brian said it all.
Oh. You want to let it go with that?
Oh gosh, yes. I think it's an issue we all need to deal with. It's not only going to take the supervisors or county officials or, the Flagstaff department, it's going to be a lot of planning, a lot of checks and balances, a lot of feedback, that's going to happen. But I think that we are short-staffed on our officers, and I think they're with what's been happening. I think they really need to properly retrain, or I don't want to say retrain. I mean, to get them more trained, with better techniques, than what was there. And what is there currently. So I'm kind of thinking about that, and then so I feel for the officers, because they're right in the front line. I've seen on TV, where some they go and they never come home, and how do we deal? How is it dealt with? And I think just getting them funds, and then also we have we need to make sure that there's outreach for the people that that need these services, and that's got to be taken a look at it again, and to see, because a lot of this stuff, a lot of these things, and even policies that we have, not necessarily in the areas of what we're talking about right now, but they're outdated. Everything has to come current. Everything is new technology, things like that. So I'm just kind of thinking that, a lot of work has to be done. And, it's just going to just a lot of listening, communication, feedback, that type of thing needs to happen.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So, Judy, you get this question. The Navajo and Hopi nations are sovereign nations. How does that make the job different for the Board of Supervisors when dealing with them versus dealing with Donny Park and other unincorporated areas of the county?
That's one of the things I will be exploring. I am not sure, because I know that we are sovereign, and any kind of help that we're going to be getting, they always say, you guys sovereign, you guys are, you guys have to be on your own. But, somewhere along the way, my question is, the county votes, okay? Just like, for instance, the Navajos vote, in the county, and I think they should have some access to some of those fundings, if not already. And I will, be looking into that and making sure, how can the county really help? What has the county helped without us helped us out with it? And, why is there, red tape? Is there, this and that? But sovereignty is already there. So how do we work with one another? We can't just say you guys are sovereign and then, we get everybody to come out and vote, for the Board of Supervisors. That kind of just, I've been thinking about that. And it's something that I need to look at. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but certainly I will explore that and then make sure that if it can be done, it can be done. If it can't be done, then I like to go back to my people and others and let them know that it can't be done for these reasons. Maybe we could work together to do something else that would be more workable. So, but sovereignty has always been an issue with the tribes, and it's not a good thing for me. It's good that, we have some protection, but, when it comes down to other resources, other things, then, it's just like, it can't be done. Is what we're told. And I think, we're all going to help one another, and, we're all within the same county, and, we need to help. We got to find ways together. We can't just say, can't.
Thank you. So, Brian, how would you see the differences in dealing with both of those populations?
Being the county supervisor for District 4 will be a challenge for whomever is in that seat. And the reason is that you have very different populations. You have the Eastern Country Club section, you have the Donny Park region. Fernwood and Timberline are not in District 4. You have a group of along Blue Ridge and Forest Lakes. They are part of the District 4 as well as the Navajo Nation. Now, there is no doubt that the county has responsibilities for the Navajo Nation as well as the Hopi community of Moenkopi. We oftentimes forget them, but they are part of the District 4 region. The point I want to get at is that the Board of Supervisors for District 4 and District 5 need to be going out, and I believe Lena Fowler has done an excellent job of this, and working with the people of these two districts, of being engaged with what their needs are. Now, what is it that we can do? Number one, the state government has taken a lot of the local control away from Board of Supervisors and city councils, as I've already mentioned. One of the issues there is water. Well, water is absolutely essential. As the Hopi say, water is life. And so I think one of the things that we as the Board of Supervisors can begin to look at is how can we get filtration systems out to the native communities where they can process the water so that it is safe for drinking. Number two, the county is responsible for going up and getting the garbage from Tuba City, Cameron, other native communities. And we have an issue with too much wood that's in the forest. So what if we were to take the trucks that are currently going up empty, and instead we fill them with firewood, the ponderosa pine and so forth that's been cut. We haul it up to the chapter houses. The chapter houses provide the security, they provide the oversight. We dump the firewood there so that the Native people have wood to cook with and to stay warm with during the winter. And then they go another mile, mile and a half, they pick up the garbage and they come home. You get twice as much the service out of your tax dollars. Other things I'd like to see is that we work with the Native people in order to, we've got to work with the federal government to get money to work with the Native people. And part of that comes through the Grand Canyon Enlargement Act of 1975. And that essentially says that there will be money provided to the communities along the eastern side of the Colorado River that border the Grand Canyon National Park. That never happened because of the Bennett freeze. And so I think that those are a few places that we can begin to work.
Thank you. So the next question, Brian.
Yes, sir.
What are some examples of the county collaboration with the city of Flagstaff? And do you feel that a good job is currently being done with those collaborations?
I do. I think the county and the city have worked well together. Yes, there have been hiccups, okay? But things I would point out is that there's a county city library. There are different, we have all sorts of agreements between the county and city. The jail, for example, is a county city enterprise that's worked very well, very effective. I think the landfill, now the city owns the landfill, but the county pays for residents in the Donny Park region and other areas to take trash to the landfill once or twice a year, and that works very well. We currently are building a courthouse together. That's very efficient. And we've worked together on dark skies, something that is absolutely critical for the Naval Observatory, which is a key place for determining the times and the location of the satellites that provide the GIS systems. And that's where we get a lot of information for where are our ships in the Navy, where are aircraft of the Air Force or the Army, where are our service people across the world. The one place that's been a little contentious is with the flood district. Now, it had been that the county was not responsible for managing the flood districts. That changed about 2 years ago. And what essentially has happened is that the county is now in charge of all flood districts based upon a new interpretation of the law. That's what led to the dispute between the city and the county. Now the city said, okay, we will pursue doing the Rio de Flag flood prevention through a different avenue. And essentially that's where the city and the county then got into this mix-up, and it's much more complicated than was presented in the Daily Sun. That's not a comment on the Daily Sun. I mean, it's very complicated. And so one of the things that needs to happen is in those flood districts is for consistent meetings between the engineers and the policymakers between the city and the county that are dealing with the flood districts. And I believe that that can happen. I believe that I'm in a good place to help that move forward.
Thank you. Judy, would you like to comment on the collaborations between Flagstaff, the city of Flagstaff, and the county? And how those have worked out.
I see a lot of collaboration within the city and the council. I mean, only because I see a lot of development coming up, road infrastructure. You know, you have to clear there's a lot of clearances to even building a house. You know, land withdrawals and making sure that, you know, and then that road maintenance and road infrastructure, all of that you have to work hand in hand with the city and the council, because, you know, hand in hand, they have to make sure that everything checks out before they even build, before they can even do anything. But I see the landfill north of here, north of on 89 Junction, you know, and I'm pretty sure, you know, that that's also part of the whole thing. And within a lot of developments, I know there's a lot, but I probably won't be able to name a lot of it because I just see it, you know, when you're driving around, you know, town, you see that happening. So, and I know that there's a lot of housing that has gone up too, you know, so that and I'm sure there's a lot of programs that they work with, maybe NACA, and you know, everybody has to work together. As you know, we have to work together, and this is how you see the results, and it's visible. So that's all I have to say.
Good, thank you. So, Judy, what is the most important thing for the county to do to prevent a catastrophic forest fire?
I know that I see signs saying high, and moderate, you know, things like that. I think we really need to educate with people more. And I think it's a lot of people that just drive by and throw maybe a cigarette down in this house, a fire starts, you know, and so I'm thinking that we just have to be very careful. We have to educate everybody. We have to show people the prevention, maybe in newsletters or every week, you know, the newspapers, you know, just get it out in the community websites, whatever it may be, you know. And I think a lot of it has to be prevention type of things that, you know, that so it doesn't become a catastrophe. And, you know, in anything is like that. It's just like what we're dealing with, the virus right now. You know, we could have done something with that, and more education even prior, when we first heard way back in November, I believe is when, and you know, nobody, you know, really took it seriously until now. You know, it's just really ballooned up. So I'm just thinking that there's got to be a lot of prevention education on that, and a lot of publicity on it, and you know, making sure that, you know, we're it doesn't get to that, because we don't want, you know, people's homes burnt down, you know, for infrastructure or whatever, you know. So maybe in one area, you know, people can meet, and you know, we can talk to them about those things too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, what are your thoughts on what the county can do to prevent a catastrophic fire?
The key issue here is fuels reduction. You've got to reduce the amount of burnable material that are in the forest. If we can do that and return to what was a natural, healthy ponderosa pine forest, then the trees are spread out. Fire can burn through, and it will burn up the litter, it will burn up the branches that are on the ground, and it then provides for regeneration of the soil via the release of nutrients back into the ground. So in order to make that happen, we already have a program called Forefry. Now, before I get into Forefry, I want folks to know that I was a member of the Flagstaff Forest Partnership. This was the original group of folks, and it was brought together by, in part, the original meeting was brought together by the fire chief of Flagstaff, and I believe that was Fire Chief Treadway. The point I'm getting at here is that this is a long process. This is going to take time, and we are already on that track. So the museum fire that happened was very unfortunate. It was a spark. Nobody did anything wrong. Nobody broke any laws. And it simply was something that there was a spark that simmered and then caught fire when the groups that had been working on the fire, working on clearing, had left. So the Flagstaff Forest Watershed Protection Program is absolutely essential. We've got to continue with that. Meanwhile, the county is already doing a lot of thinning over in Williams. Williams is probably the most susceptible community in the county right now for a major fire. And it's because of Bill Williams Mountain. If that area burns, everything comes down into the town of Williams. The city has come up, the county has a burner in which they can now burn a huge amount of material and reduce the amount of smoke by something like 95%. Jay Smith is doing a great job for the county. The other thing is that we need to work with the Fry, and Art Babbitt has done a lot of this work. I look forward to stepping in and helping with that, because I've worked with Fry over the last several years via my teaching at the Coconino Community College. So the real key issue, number one, is reduce the fuels. The other one that Judy mentioned, and she's right on track, it's fire education. We have to get people to pay attention to building smaller fires, being closer when the COVID doesn't force us to be further apart. So, thank you.
Thank you. So, a lot of water policy is set at the state level. What can the county do to protect our water supply and provide water to parts of the county that don't have it? Brian, that's your question.
It's an excellent question, and it's a tough one, because you hit it right on the head, and water is largely controlled by the state. And it's either under the EPA, I think, is involved with water quality, and the water resources is involved with water quantity. First thing that would really help is to get the two state departments working together more closely. But in that process, what we need to have is to return to local governance, so that the local counties, the boards of supervisors, along with the cities and their water units, and Flagstaff has some excellent folks in their water staff. The point I'm getting at is that these decisions are made better by local people who understand the water issues. And we have one of the premier water intelligence agencies. It's called the, now I can't remember the name of it. It's the USGS, Geologic Service. And we get a tremendous amount of information from them. I have been in on meetings with the Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Council, and I talk with hydrologists fairly regularly. But I think the key issue here is that we need to return the authority for making water decisions to the local government. That's going to require a change in the current composition of the state legislature.
A good point. Thank you. Judy, so what would you like to add about the water, our water rights, and how we protect them?
I know in some boards, several boards that are several people that have been getting groups of people together, like an advocacy group. I think that if we were to get a group of people together and go down and advocate for our water instead of having the state do it for us, I think there's a way that we can work together in order to, you know, really get them to know why we want to safe keep, and why we want to maintain, and how we want to, you know, take care of our own water resources, or, you know, let them know. I mean, they're making all the decisions, just like for me now. I'm thinking about the Navajo Nation with these questions, the Hopi Nations, and just as a strip of the county. I'm not thinking about the whole 5 districts, is what I'm trying to think that way. But there's so many things that are, you know, just like, let me use an example. Traditionally, we're told not to look at people in the eye when we're talking. So it's been hard for me, but, you know, but nonetheless, I guess what I'm saying is that they need to know what we're about, what we want. And I think we have a group of a water advocacy group that can work directly with the state and make sure that, you know, whatever we want is something they consider, or something that we recommend is considered, or they can adopt those. It can happen. I mean, just like I said, there's a lot of programs I worked with, I had to go through those routes. And so and everything that Brian said is pretty much, my train of thought too.
Good, thank you. So Judy, you get this one. What is your opinion regarding the plans for the old Horseman Lodge property?
I don't really know anything, but I can look around and check around. I'm not sure about that property. I haven't really heard anything about it, so that's the honest truth. but I will get myself educated on it for sure from this day on.
Okay, good enough. Thanks. Okay, Brian, what is your opinion of the Horseman Lodge property?
I want to start with a little context here. And the point is that the Navajo Gaming Enterprise is an extension of the Navajo Nation, but it is an independent extension. So the Navajo Gaming Enterprise did come out and they have stated that they bought the Horseman's Lodge property because they wanted to prevent another tribe from buying that property and then opening a casino or opening a competing business when Twin Arrows is just 30 miles away from them. So strategically, I think the Navajo Gaming Enterprise was looking out, they were paying attention, and they said, this is a good piece of property, let's buy it, we'll see what we do with it down the road. Now, I am the co-chair of the Donny Park Fernwood Timberline Long-Term Planning Committee. And as such, we have invited the Navajo Gaming Enterprise to come and share with us about the property. And they have said, yes, we will do that, but they have not yet agreed to a date to present. So the problem that we have is lack of information. And whenever you have lack of information, people often get scared about what's happening because they don't know. And so we, oh, it's going to be a big casino. Doubtful, but it could be. And the problem here is that for the Navajo Gaming Enterprise, if they want to turn it into a casino, they will have to take the private property and it will have to be converted over to Navajo Nation property. And that is a long legal process. So what's my opinion? My opinion is that we stay calm. We stay relaxed. We try to get the best information we can when that information is available. We continue to ask the Navajo Gaming Enterprise to come meet with us at the Long-Term Planning Committee and perhaps even do a community meeting at some point in the Donny Park region, including Fernwood and Timberline. But I think that it's too early for us to get out and say, well, this is what we want, that's what we want. My position right now is let's see what information comes forward, let's validate that information, and then let's proceed in communication with the Navajo Gaming Enterprises.
Good. Okay, Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
District 4 is huge and diverse, running all the way from Tuba City through Flagstaff and down to Forest Lakes. How will you keep up with that district and all of its needs?
Number one, it's going to take staff. I can't do it all myself. And I recognize that from the beginning. So there's no way that one county supervisor can be everywhere within District 4. And you look at Coconino County itself, it's the second largest county in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way that any one of the county supervisors can be everywhere that they're requested to be at the time they're requested. So the point is, you got to have good staff. And one of the things that I will commit to today is to have Native Americans on my staff to help me understand what the issues are and what the procedures might be in order to address water problems, to address the uranium mining, to address dams that have been proposed up on the Navajo and the Hopi lands. So, number two, I will be consistently sending out newsletters every month. And the reason is, I've got to communicate with the constituents what's going on. So I will be sending them by email for those that we can't get to by email. Perhaps we will do snail mail. But the point I want to get at is that I will have to prioritize what meetings I go to, and when I get there, what is it that I need to concentrate on to get the best information possible for a future decision.
Thank you. So Judy, you get to answer that question, and it's actually our last question. So if you would address how you're going to keep up with all that has to be done for District 4.
Okay. I'm very familiar with the chapters within Western Agency. That would be where under District 4, we have Tonalea, we have part of Carl Springs, Loop, Talani Lake, and then we have also part of Bird Springs, and then Coal Mine, Cameron, those areas. And so I would get on their agendas, and it's going to be a lot of planning. It's going to be a lot of planning, but I like to be visible. I like to be visible, and then, check with everybody on District 4 when and where they're going to be meeting at, and then, go from there. And then do a lot of planning. And then, of course, I would identify people that I can communicate that are very active in the communities, and work closely with them, to try to get information out. And then do newsletters, do ads in the papers about county. And I think the county does a real good job with the newsletters that are going out. I read those all the time. And so it's very informative, but how do you translate that, to others that are out there on the reservation? That's the one thing that I wouldn't have to work at. And then also, again, staffing is a requirement, but and a lot of people, just like here, there's a lot of volunteers, PCs that are doing a lot of work. If you can start something like that in each community, that would be great too. I mean, at least you have that one-on-one, and the information is already there, because we've had previous board of supervisors that we only saw during election time, and that was it. And so it's not right, because there was no feedback, but feedback is very important. And I don't want to say I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that. I like to get all the information first before, like what I can do, what I can't do, why this, why that. So that's what I want to do first, and then start with some kind of organization where I can identify people that are reliable in those communities, and give out information. So I think it's a lot of information giving that you have to do, and then also a lot of feedback to the people. And people ask you something, and then you need to basically go back and make sure that it's not an answer you can get, or you can't get, or you can't do, or you need to let them know that, because if you don't, then they're not going to have that trust in you. And I like to, go around and, get factual information before I even, disperse that to whomever. So I think, it's going to be a challenge, going and working, but there's a lot of ways you can do that. Like technology, you have all these emails going out. You have, I would just set up all that for the chapters, I have all of their email addresses right now, and just zoom that out, we just get that out to them with a hit of a button, information that's been going on, and then, then be visible, and make a plan, a calendar of some type, so it's going to be a lot of planning, preparation, along with the meetings that we're going to be having, for county meetings and different types of meetings that we're going to be, involved with. So it's going to be a challenge, but, I've done that before and I didn't have a problem with it.
So I thank both of you all for your service, for putting yourself in this position. It's a huge job, and good luck to both of you. There are 4 questions that were not answered, and so Ann Heitland will send those to you. If you would like to respond to those in writing, then we will post those on the CCDEM's website. In the meantime, thank you very much for your time, and reminder to everybody who's watching, vote and bring your friends and family and tell them to do the same. Thank you and have a great afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Wakone.